Right, so Keir Starmer continues to double down on accepting freebies and donations from all and sundry because, well, frankly, he enjoys it too much, doesn't he? He'd been warned it was bad optics, but he didn't care. When pulled up on certain issues like football tickets, he maintains he has no choice, when it would be a very simple choice to do like we all do and pay for such things ourselves. But heaven forfend, he does that. That doesn't seem to even occur to him. Some within the Labour Party have said it should be Sue Gray telling him to pack it in, that it's her job to do this. And when he's cutting incomes, freezing pensioners and starving kids, he shouldn't be accepting gifts on the scale he has been. But given her wage packet now, bigger than his, perhaps she's been paid off too, so to speak. Conjecture, of course, as that is, but that is the appearance, is it not? Starmer has refused to listen, refuses to be shamed into saying no or paying his own way as we all face more hardship and austerity under his regime. Those wealthy enough to shower him with gifts are wealthy enough to be taxed more, in my view. But now he's just accepted the biggest donation of them all, an off-the-charts donation, albeit this one for the Labour Party itself. The mainstream media, crowing about Starmer's gifts as they are, have missed this one completely. And when you dig into who it is from, we should be very concerned about who is buying Labour influence, because at the end of the day, all donations amount to lobbying after all. If you haven't got a prezi for Keith or his wife, it seems he doesn't work for you. Right, so Keir Starmer and his penchant for accepting free gifts is pretty much verging on addiction, given the scale of it, and if he is so easily bought off by those with money to throw at him, it's a concern as to how readily our government might be being bought off by vested interests with wealth and influence. For once, mainstream media have flagged the issue of us having a bought and paid for PM. The scale of Starmer's gifts being, frankly, staggering. Since the end of 2019, the beginning of the Boris Johnson administration, Starmer has taken 2.5 times more donations than any other MP, bar none. Has taken more donations than every Labour leader since 1997 combined, all adding up to a grotesque £107,145 worth of freebies. He just cannot say no to free gifts. More than £20,000 of that has come since he became PM. So if anything, the situation appears to be worsening. He's taking more now than ever before. And it matters, because who is giving him money or gifts is, by doing so, lobbying him for something. It doesn't get given for nothing. It's quite a simple matter to get your head around, really, that the more in the way of gifts and donations an MP takes, the more bought and paid for they are by those handing the gifts out, by the vested interests handing such stuff to him or his other MPs or his party as a whole. But with the rot this widespread on this scale at the very top of the party, well, the fish rots from the head, as the saying goes. Starmer's been given holidays, football tickets, theatre tickets, accommodation, all paid for him, so he or his party didn't have to. None of this coming from the kindness of anyone's heart. They all want something from him. Starmer himself has said it's going to continue, that he sees nothing wrong with it, that he's going to carry on taking the gifts. But actually, there's everything wrong with it from a moral point of view, from the optics point of view, when it is a form of lobbying by vested interests at the end of the day to do things their way instead of running the country in our interests. We're only the people who voted him in, after all. So for those who were sure getting the Tories out would bring the change Starmer kept harping on about that he stood for, having been now bitterly disappointed as instead more cuts have come, calls to tax the rich more have fallen on deaf ears, and well, you can't help but leap to the very obvious conclusion that the more rich people get taxed, the least or the less in the way of freebies Keir Starmer will end up getting. Starmer's top donor has been, of course, the Passes for Glasses Labour MP, Wahid Ali. He's paid out to dress both Starmer and his wife, hasn't he? Plus those glasses, and according to a story by the Financial Times this morning, Starmer initially tried to pass off this donation to him under any other support, under the any other support section in his register of financial interests, rather than under gifts, benefits and hospitality, as it should have been, which clearly demonstrates to my mind that Starmer knew the optics were damaging, tried to hide a big donation instead by listing it under something else more vague, and was told to sort himself out after being advised it wouldn't wash, and if he got found out, he'd be left hanging. The second largest donor giving Starmer £12,588 worth of free tickets to watch Arsenal and Taylor Swift was the FA Premier League. Starmer, of course, came out with a horrendous excuse that he wouldn't be able to watch his beloved Arsenal otherwise because of all the security issues. I can't sit with the fans. I can't sit with the proles. They might hurt me. They might damage me. Well, that doesn't wash either, because this guy didn't have a problem at all doing it, did he? So I can't imagine really why Keir Starmer does. But equally, why can't he buy his own damn tickets? He's on £167,000 a year. He was before that just as highly paid as Director of Public Prosecutions and had a successful career as a barrister before that. This is a guy who is reputedly a multi-millionaire. He just seems to be addicted to being showered with gifts. But they aren't free, not really. They come with a lobbying catch attached. And they come at a political price, asking the question, whose side are you on? Who are you working for? But while Starmer's own acceptance of free gifts is a matter the mainstream media are very much digging into, and rightfully so, for a change they are doing their job here, holding power to account. They've missed another huge story by accident or design, because as much as Starmer taking £100,000 personally in freebies is appalling, taking £4 million from a dubious source has been completely missed, except, thankfully, by the excellent Open Democracy news site. You see, for as much as we could talk of taxing wealth here in the UK, Starmer perhaps balking at that idea because it would hit him in his grifting, some might point to tax havens and stashed away wealth as a resource that could be tapped. Of course, one reason Starmer might not want to do that is that those accounts might be held by people already plying him with prezzies. But when £4 million has made it into his party coffers from the Cayman Islands, the largest single donation in the Labour Party's history, well, you can't help but think the mass media has missed a massive glaring story here, especially when you dig into who the money is from further. Here's an excerpt from Open Democracy's coverage. The Labour Party's largest ever donation came from a Cayman Islands registered hedge fund with shares worth hundreds of millions of pounds in fossil fuels, private health firms, arms manufacturers and asset managers. While the £4 million donation by Quadrature Capital is the sixth largest in British political history, it is noteworthy not just for its size, but also its timing. Electoral Commission records suggest Labour received the donation in the 1 week window between former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announcing the general election and the start of the pre-poll reporting period, in which all political donations over £11,180 had to be published weekly, rather than the quarterly norm. This means that despite being made on the 28th of May, Quadrature's generous donation was published by the Electoral Commission only last week, more than 2 months after Labour won the election. Yet again, it seems timing was everything, and Starmer's Labour pulling every trick to try and delay or obscure donations. And it reminds me of his leadership campaign when he was the only Labour leadership candidate refusing to disclose who was bankrolling his leadership bid. And it turned out to be a who's who of the Israel lobby, didn't it? Add in his attempt at deception over Wahid Ali's passes for glasses donation, and now this. This is not a Labour Party or a government or a PM interested in transparency. It is quite the opposite. Very much, in my view, par for the course with Keir Starmer. You take what he says and you expect him to do the complete opposite, don't you? The Labour Party, the party supposedly of the workers, born from the trade union movement, and its biggest ever donation comes from a hedge fund. If that doesn't tell you they are now just another Tory party, I don't know what does. But of course, it's what that hedge fund represents, has business interests in, what industries it holds assets in that can give away what the cash may well be for. And you only need to look at Labour policy, manifesto commitments, what Starmer has done since coming to power to wonder no more, perhaps. Fossil fuels, Open Democracy made mention of. Obviously, Starmer hasn't opted to cancel any of the licenses Sunak passed for oil and gas in the North Sea. But actually, Quadrature also hold interest in green tech and the climate crisis. So I'm not quite sure how they manage that myself, perhaps future-proofing the energy industry. Starmer has, of course, lifted the ban on onshore wind farms as well. But he's also on record as saying he has little interest in green energy and that he hates tree huggers. So perhaps he's as both sides as Quadrature seem to be on this matter. Private health interests are, of course, a significant concern. We know Starmer and his health secretary, Wes Streeting, have taken massive donations from private health lobbyists. And here is the Labour Party itself doing likewise through this donation. Quadrature also hold investments from arms manufacturers. It adds another angle to the whole only cancelling 30 arms export licenses instead of all 350 that we have with the genocidal state of Israel, does it not? Puts that in a new light. Having had a look at Quadrature Capital's portfolio holdings on the website fintel.io, they have interest in some 1,600 companies. So admittedly, I've only skimmed it. Feel free to look more in depth yourself. But they have shares in companies like Lockheed Martin, Goldman Sachs, United Health, BlackRock, Palantir Technologies, Pfizer, CVS Health, Motorola. The list goes on and on. Fundamentally, it shows that taking money from a hedge fund is probably the biggest red flag of them all, because they represent so many varied industries all of which may somewhere along the line via this donation have now lobbied the Labour government to act in their interest. Massive, massive question need asking for this donation far beyond what Starmer is taking on personally, himself by way of freebies. As much as the mainstream media are fixating on them, I sincerely hope it isn't all to mask this much larger, much more readily apparent issue of Labour donations under Keir Starmer. For as much as passes for glasses has been awkward for him and isn't going away either, now it's come out he's tried to hide it by listing the donation elsewhere. The same donor, Wahid Ali, also brought a load of dresses for Starmer's wife, of course, didn't he? The Frockgate scandal. The other side of Ali's massive donation to Starmer personally. The Starmers are now effectively the new Boris and Carrie, it seems. Check out this video recommendation as your suggested next watch for more details of Starmer being on the take, if so inclined. I'll hopefully catch you on the next video. Cheers, folks.